How's it going, everyone? My name is True Underdog, and Skarlet got quite a few buffs in the recent update. Now, unfortunately, she still has more gaps than a shopping mall, but even so, some of these changes are pretty nice. So without any further ado, let's break down all of these changes step by step. So first up, Thicker Than Water got quite a few changes, so it has 3 less recovery frames on hit. So the hit advantage is a little bit better than it was, plus 41. That's going to be really good if you landed near the corner. You can either go for some pressure on wake up or at least close the distance pretty easily. And it also has 3 less recovery frames on whiff. So if you miss it, you can recover a bit faster. It's still a lot of time, but it's a bit better than it used to be. And then on block, it has 8 less recovery frames and 5 less block stun frames. So on block, it is now only -3. So it's not punishable, but I don't think it ever really was. In summary, what this means is this move is just all around better. It's better on hit, it's better on block, it's better on miss, all that nice stuff, which is nice because this is your go-to whiff punish in a lot of situations if you want that crushing blow. And quick transfusion also got quite a bit of love, so the first hit has 4 less recovery frames. Now it doesn't specify where, so I'm just gonna assume on everything, but check this out, on hit it's now +3. I do believe this move used to actually be minus on hit, not punishable, but still minus. Now it's +3, which means you can try to go for some pressure, you can dash, go for some pressure, all that good stuff. It's just a bit better on hit. Look at that, from further away it can actually be +4. So if you space it from further away, it's even better. Nice stuff. Now it already comboed, and that much hasn't changed, but now if you're a bit closer and you land it, you're now positive on block instead of being minus. And this next change is kind of weird, so the second hit is now 24 frames instead of 25, which a lot of people were hoping meant there was no longer a flawless block gap, but there definitely is. So I'm not sure what NetherRealm was trying to change with this. Maybe it's a bit tougher to flawless block now, but I don't know. I don't see a very big change happening here. And honestly, this gap was never really an issue because pretty much no one committed to that final hit anyway. Because you could just do this if you wanted pressure, you could do this if you wanted a combo, and it was also pretty hard for the opponent to deal with this also. So there was no reason to ever really finish this one, so even if the gap went away, it's not one of the strings that had a big gap problem. Like, the problem was there, but no one really cared, because once again, you pretty much never finish this string. I'm wondering, maybe it's just like impossible to jump now? Maybe before you could jump it? I think maybe that's what it is. I think before you could jump this thing, and now you can't. That may be why it's 1 frame faster. That's nice, I guess, but I have no reason to jump if I'm the opponent, because if I block that second hit, they're -7, so it's guaranteed my turn. Even if I'm a slower character like Devora, I don't really need to jump, I'm still plus as long as I block it. Now this change I actually like quite a lot, so Side Slam is now much better. It has 10 more frames of hit advantage, and also 5 less recovery frames on hit. So what this means is when you land this move, ta-da, you're now +13. That's great. For anyone who's not aware, this move was pretty much neutral even on hit, which didn't make any sense because you knock the opponent down, and yet you still don't have enough of an advantage to do pretty much anything. However, now if you do manage to land this move, the opponent pretty much has to deal with whatever you do, especially your forward 4-3, which is by far one of Skarlet's best strings. The opponent now has to respect this if you hit them with that back 2 overhead. So this change is actually quite nice, and it's something a lot of Skarlet fans were asking about. They're like, how come I take this big risk with a move that's fully punishable on block, and then even if I land it, I get pretty much no reward whatsoever? Now if you knock the opponent down, you're so plus they have to deal with your pressure on wake up, and I love that. Now unfortunately, the issue is the back 2 crushing blow is still garbage. It didn't get a damage buff, there's no damage over time, no bleed effect, no nothing. So this overhead is still pretty much not a threat at all. The main idea behind this overhead is supposed to be you land it once, and now the opponent is scared of that crushing blow, so if they're in the corner, you get a full combo, and even from mid-screen, you can still get something off of this low. You're trying to scare them into stand blocking, but they still don't have a reason to be afraid because the damage is so low from that crushing blow. And don't get me wrong, I'm the guy who normally says crushing blows do too much damage, but this Side Slam, by default, does 90. With the crushing blow, it does double, which is more than the regular attack for sure, but it's not nearly as threatening as the combo that comes after in the corner or anything else, and it's still fully punishable on block. So once again, if you want to go for that crushing blow, it's a pretty high risk and a very low reward. But thankfully, even though the crushing blow does kind of suck, the overhead itself is now much better on hit and actually guarantees pressure on wake up as long as the opponent doesn't have meter. And this next change is also pretty nice, so the second hit of Coagulation is now a mid instead of a high. And that's a big deal because that second hit leaves Skarlet +6 on block. And since her fastest mid is 13 frames, as long as you time it properly, that's a guaranteed frame trap. If they block this, and then you go for forward forward 3, that's guaranteed pressure. If they press any buttons, they're gonna get counter hit for a full combo. Now of course the problem is this game has input buffer on block and not hit, so when the opponent blocks this string, if they mash and your timing is even slightly off, you're not gonna get the pressure and they'll just interrupt you, so you definitely want to practice that timing. And from what I've heard, this also works a lot better for her anti-airs if the opponent's a bit further away. So if you're around here and you want to anti-air, that second hit is now a lot more likely to land, which is interesting. I like that. Now to be fair, an even better anti-air is just standing 2 if you don't know. Look at the crazy hitbox on this thing. It doesn't even make sense. It hits like way above the actual dagger, and when you land it, once again, the anti-air is just that much better because that second hit is now a mid. So this is now like your bread and butter punish, and I think that Skarlet may have one of the best anti-air games on the roster right now, which is awesome. So just in case you love Skarlet and you didn't know that, her standing 2 is a fantastic anti-air, and thanks to this change, you can now do 4-4 and then tentacle, and it's pretty much guaranteed all the time. Even if you anti-air a bit late, or if you do coagulation a bit late, that tentacle is still pretty much guaranteed. And then if you're a bit further away, you can also get that second hit. Now, the tentacle does not seem guaranteed there though, which is a bit of a shame, but it is something you can do. Maybe the far version? Nah. It seems like you just can't really guarantee the tentacle, but you can at least guarantee the 4-4 if you're further away, and then if you're closer, standing 2, 4-4 tentacle. And then if you prefer variation 1 like me, then rejoice because Bloodport is now 4 frames faster on startup, which is very nice. Skarlet had pretty much one of the worst teleports in the entire game, and now it's just that much faster. In fact, it's fast enough to actually chase the opponent down. And if they go for any sort of wake up in variation 1, you can parry them in pretty much every situation where you knock them down. So you chase them, you parry, or you just block, either or. The main point is you recover before they even get up. So you can go for pressure, you can go for a mix-up, or you can block or go for a parry, all that good stuff. So for example, this combo right here, if you don't want to go for damage, you can just go for teleport pressure. And once again, if the opponent goes for a wake up or any sort of retaliation, you can just parry them. So in variation 1, you can pretty much stick to them like glue at the end of every single combo. And then once the opponent is scared and they're blocking on wake up, you can just go for a throw and mix them that way. And then the rest of these changes all have to do with her blood splatter, and there's quite a lot here. So for starters, it has 2 less startup frames. So now it's 16 frames on startup, very, very nice. It has 3 less recovery frames on hit, which means you recover that much faster. You're now +9 on hit. That's actually a pretty big deal because once again, it pretty much guarantees her best string, which is 4-3-4. So if you land this, you can do blood splatter and then just go for it again. If it lands again, then just keep doing it, but if it's blocked, you can go for the tentacle or the parry, all those fun mix-ups. Now unfortunately, this move does have 2 more frames of recovery on block and whiff, so it's a bit more unsafe, so you don't want to do it unless you land that hit. However, to end things on a positive note, it has 10 more frame advantage on hit, which once again is why you're able to just loop this over and over again. And Blood Spatter is also Skarlet's armor breaking move, so this beats Fatal Blow, and it also beats Breakaway, which is good news and bad news. The good news is it's pretty fast and it's available in every variation, so no matter which Skarlet you like to play, she always has access to her counter breakaway move. However, the bad news is outside of the corner, it's not really worth it. So if you just do a regular launcher and then uppercut, that's more damage than if you do the regular blood spatter. Now if you spend a meter, you can actually relaunch them and get the tentacle from mid-screen, which is a bit better damage, which is nice, but it's not nearly as threatening as a lot of the other armor breaking moves on the roster. And then if you're in variation 3 and don't mind spending 2 bars, you can actually get a lot more damage from mid-screen, around 30%, which might not seem like much, but if the opponent's low on health and this gets the kill, it's awesome to know you have that option even though they use their breakaway. However, in the corner is definitely where this move shines because it relaunches and they don't get sent flying away because of course the wall is right there. And you get some pretty decent damage, around 30%, maybe 31% if you work a bit harder. If I'm being honest, I do wish the damage was a bit more because you're already getting around that much damage for not spending any bar. So the fact that your breakaway does about the same damage at the cost of 1 bar isn't that great. I feel like one of the main points of an armor breaking move is to scare your opponent into not wanting to do breakaway because the damage is that much worse. But honestly, if you're fighting Skarlet in the corner, you might as well go for the breakaway because if they don't make that read, then you get away scot-free. And then even if they do make the correct read, it's about the same damage anyway, so it's not a very big risk. So in summary, the blood spatter is in every variation, which is nice, but I wish it was a bit more threatening from mid-screen and in the corner. The damage just isn't really there. So to summarize all these changes, Skarlet did get a lot of buffs, but it wasn't really fixing a lot of the issues that Skarlet players wanted. She still has a gap on a bunch of her strings, just pretty much every single one has a flawless block gap, and that just makes her a lot weaker at a higher level of play, especially for strings like her forward 4-3, which again is one of her best strings. It's a far-reaching mid, it cancels into everything, it's a great hit confirm, and yet unfortunately that huge gap is still there, so you run a big risk every time you go for it. And once again, this overhead crushing blow, it still sucks. The regular move is still good, it's still a decent overhead now, it's much better, but the crushing blow is still not a threat, so no reason to actually stand block against Skarlet, so this corner combo against a good player is still pretty much never going to happen outside of a whiff punish. It'll never be a mix-up, in other words. And as is usually the case with Skarlet outside of variation 3, her damage just isn't there outside of her 2-1-2 punish. So this can launch the opponent for a full combo, but that requires the opponent to do something -14 on block or more, or you just land it as a whiff punish. In those situations you get a combo, but otherwise you're just not getting very much damage with Skarlet. I think this move actually could have been a really fun combo extender because you never use this move, and it does stagger the opponent, so imagine if it staggered them long enough for like a jump in or just a follow-up combo, similar to Cassie Cage's bubble in variation 2, that could have been interesting. But sadly, unless the opponent does something very risky, you're never gonna see this string, which means most of your damage is around 20% or lower. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad that Skarlet got some buffs, and I think some of these changes were actually really good, but I wish that NetherRealm would have focused on a lot of the issues that players were complaining about, because I feel like a lot of the issues that made her feel low tier in a lot of people's eyes are still there. But please let me know your thoughts on Skarlet in the comment section down below. Do you think she's still pretty weak, or do you think she's just fine with these buffs? Please let me know. And while you're down there, please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. It really does help my channel out a ton. And finally, why not keep that combo going by subscribing and ringing that bell? That way you never miss a future video. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.